And we're live. Thanks everyone for returning to the Awake and Alive podcast. I'm your host, Mike DeCroce, along with co-host Mark Smith, and our guest today, Chris Sievers from Anchor Point Fitness. Just a couple quick reminders. If you're interested in unconventional training, interested in starting a new program, please check out our online training portal on IamAwakeandAlive.com. Through the portal, you get access to our growing library of unconventional workouts, follow-along videos, mobility and movement routines that are programmed by Mark Smith himself, along with the unconventional Guide to Fitness ebook from Mega Mad Fitness. It's really great. It's a great value. You can give it a try for just $5. So go to the site, check it out, and just give it a shot. Anyways, Mark, I guess now we got that out of the way, I'll let you introduce our guest.
Yeah. So as Mike said, we have Chris Sievers with us, the owner and founder of Anchor Point Training. And we're actually pretty excited because Chris is the first guy we've had that has invented a product. Now, we've had several people that have an idea or a program or a methodology. But now we have a guest that has a tangible product that is based out of a philosophy. And so we're certainly going to get into all that tonight. But Chris, before I go on and ramble on anymore and take it up airwaves, I want you to give a proper introduction to yourself, a brief history, and whatnot. So take it away.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your podcast. So I'm 61 years old. My fitness claim to fame is I played 40 years of competitive rugby. I played till I was 56 in Quebec. And for the last 20 years of my career, I trained not with, sort of traditional weights, but with a lot of movement-based approach to training to stay athletic. I took on a couple of notions. One, lots of variety in the program that I developed for myself, really, and looked at ideas. And the other was to train as much as possible in the ranges of motion that I needed to use in my sport. And so that led me to certain ways of training with elastic resistance, which is really what I sort of geeked out on when I started to geek out on about 15 years ago. And then I opened I was living in Quebec at the time. I opened a gym, and I had a spa, and I had a gym facility there, and started training seniors as well using some of my ideas. I developed an anchor system called the ARC, and showed it to some other trainers, and they got very excited about it, and I started to sell those in Quebec and in Canada. Got involved with a couple of universities, got involved with some really interesting MMA guys, sold a piece to the National Ballet of Canada. So I was starting to sort of swim in some pretty interesting waters, and it was really enjoying it and thinking, boy, I think I've got something to bring up. I was looking at what other people were doing in the industry and thinking, I can definitely improve on that, right? So 5 years ago, I sold the business I had in Quebec. I'd always been in business for myself, and moved to Southern California, to Long Beach. Southern California, arguably one of the real center points, right, of fitness and fitness development. So I went down
Chris,
there.
was there any noticeable difference in the weather when you moved from Quebec to Southern California?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not going back to Canada in the winter unless I have to. Interestingly, today, so this is good news. I really like to sort of announce happy news. I'll announce it on your podcast. Today I had my third meeting with the folks at Perform Better, and that's why I'm in Rhode Island right now. And I will be coming back.
They do a big seminar there in Providence.
Yeah, they do a lot. Well, they do a big. They 4 times a year they do these large summits, and they have like 700-800 trainers come to these things. Right? It's quite remarkable. And they do that. They do one in Rhode Island. They do one in Chicago. They do one in Long Beach, where I live now, and then they do one also in Orlando. But they also have a small facility at their head office where they have their warehouse, and they do seminars there, basically one-day workshops there for trainers in the Northeast, and sometimes, depending on who's presenting, people fly in for these things. So yeah, I'm doing my first one there. I hope first of many. I hope in end of January in 2017. So it looks like the gear I've developed is going to be distributed by these guys, and my education will be rolling out as part of their program, which I'm really delighted. Obviously, it's a it's a really good step forward.
So Chris, real quick, Perform Better. I attended a seminar, I believe it was, and that was sort of the turning point in my career. I heard Gray Cook speak, and that's what set me in the path of movement, play, and mobility over traditional bodybuilding type exercises. So you're now in a position to maybe influence the course of a trainer. Because that was me. I was a young trainer and worked at a gym, and I went to a Perform Better seminar, get some extra knowledge, and heard a man named Gray Cook speak, and it changed everything.
It's remarkable how many people have told me that Gray Cook really shifted their thinking on training, and I've been in this for 5 years now. I've been evolving my own ideas and gear that I've designed, and I'll give you sort of an overview of it, I guess, later on. But just in terms of how that works, there are so many. There's strong forces in our industry, that are driven by first of all weight loss and vanity, the whole bodybuilding ethos, and those are things that are really easy to market. And another thing that has driven the industry is, the fact that Olympic lifting and powerlifting are both based on how much weight can you move through a given range of motion. Now, to do that well is a very technical thing. And so these guys get really deep on that subject, and then they get really strong, and then they profess to be, well, this is the way to get strong. And then you have the kettlebell guys sort of doing the same thing, and all professing to have the truth, right? Anyone that's played a lot of sports knows conditioning is, you need a certain amount of specific stuff. You need size to some degree. You need endurance. You need power. Knows that the best programming is probably, a blend of a lot of different things and steady progression. But that, and particularly with social media and YouTube and that, certainly the iron approach to training has really just seen tremendous influence in the market of ideas. That's just the way it is. You get a lot of argy-bargy between functional training and all those guys. They don't do anything. They're just standing on a bosu doing curls. It's like, really? No, not really. Anyway, that's everything. Things change slowly, right? But ultimately, the things that work stick. If you do any single practice, whether you're really, really, really good at yoga, or you're really good at kettlebells, or you're really good at calisthenics, you're going to be amazingly strong and fit, right? That's a for sure thing. So everything is good up to the point that it's not. It's all good till it's bad, basically.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah, well, diminishing returns. Yes, that's one of my favorite hobby horses. I'll tell you right now. I think that a practice that deliberately harvests the low-hanging fruit of variety is one that is really, working towards optimal. I think what optimal practice looks like to me, all right, just a sort of big picture, it's enjoyable, right? You got to enjoy doing it. And to enjoy doing it, you should be able to do it in places you like to train. It should be efficient. It shouldn't take you, it should be as time effective as it possibly can be. It should be, by its nature, convenient. You should be able to do it wherever. These are all things that define, these are the optimal aspects of practice. it should be by its nature a practice that you can progress in many dimensions. And that means not simply progress by getting better at technique and then progressing the amount of load you can move. That is only one very narrow definition of strength that the studies more and more prove is, it just doesn't translate, carry over to improved performance. Saw one today, in fact, that was remarkable on squats and jump squats. And it showed that guys that were really, concentrating on improving their squats were not improving their jump squats, for example.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, Chris, because that's what Mark and I really like to preach, and that's sort of built into all of our programs too, is that that we try to avoid extremes, because like you guys said, there's a diminishing point of returns where those extremes, instead of building you up and adding to your health, eventually do the opposite and start breaking you down and taking away from even extreme running. At some point, you end up overtraining and doing more harm to your body than good, and getting away from the intent of exercise itself.
It's totally.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that's a ad there, and sounds like an amazing article in the works if you haven't written that already. But I love that you led off with the key point, like before you said anything else about it, being convenient and being able to, progressive. You let off with it should be enjoyable. And I think that's the thing, we kind of, each time we have a guest on, somehow we get into this conversation with that the people that seem to be doing well in the industry have found a way to make it fun and enjoyable and lighthearted and playful. And I think that that's the essence of human movement, is the kids do it because it's there and because it just is. And they have fun while doing it, versus this, it's such a chore, I got to go to the gym approach that you see with adults.
Yeah, I think that some people, their enjoyment is in fact getting into a serious grind and seeing a serious improvement. And I think that if you really enjoy picking up heavy shit, then have at it. If you enjoy doing marathons, have at it. But just know that you got a serious issue with diminishing returns. Hell, I played rugby for 40 years. Believe me, there were lots of times I regretted that. There were a lot of prices I had to pay. And, I'm 61 and I'm moving well, partly because my practice has always been based on that. So all my rehab, but just the same, I could have had debilitating injury. So we all take risks. But from a fitness point of view, if we're driving towards optimal practice, for the average person, which is not the person that is necessarily the person going to the gym today, which is still only 10% of the population. If we're looking for that optimal practice, then let's help people find approaches to training that they can enjoy, that can be playful, that they can progress and have that variety. I will say this too. There's another aspect of practice that we hear people talking about mind and body all the time and how they're connected. We know how stress causes cortisol, and we know a lot of things about how you don't get the same fitness gains if you're stressed, for example. Here's a couple other things we know too. We know now that kids that play a lot of games and sports do way better in school. They have better attention, they have better cognition, they have better memory. We're seeing this with seniors too. And the connections that are being made between aerobic activity to some extent and movement activity tremendously. And basically zero correlation with denser white matter, which leads to these three things: memory, cognition, and attention. We don't see that with strength training. We really see it with movement training. And it's clear that the most demanding thing you can do for your brain is teach it a new movement pattern. More demanding than playing bridge or crosswords or conversations or listening to music. Learning new movement patterns is really very good training for your brain, and it gives for seniors it's called cognitive reserve, right? Because we are going to slowly lose our marbles, and some of us hardly at all, but others faster. But if we train a lot of movement-based, if our practice is intrinsically based on new movement patterns, we're helping. We're giving ourselves an edge. So
I'm a big fan of games. like physical
they're awesome.
games and stuff. Yeah, huge fan of it. And as years ago, I started getting into these games mostly because I thought they were fun, and in a way, it's you get done playing a game. We got one. I'll give you an example. One of the common games we play at Asylum Fitness, the gym I own, is 2 to 3 tennis balls, depending on the size of the group, and you basically just run around, no particular pattern, but you have an area of space that you just sort of move about, and the balls can come from any direction. They're constantly in motion, so you're peripheral, or sometimes you
That's
actually
brilliant.
have eye contact with the
Brilliant.
person. But there's always more than one ball going on, and you can also play this with a couple medicine balls too if you want to add some resistance to it. But so we play this game. It's a game I've been playing for a while. But then also in across a guy named Steve Jepson. I'm sure you're familiar with the guy.
Steve stayed at my place in Long Beach for 7
No,
days.
shit, that's awesome.
We had an epic time. Yeah. I love it.
Well, listen, I would love Steve Jepson, if you're listening, please come on our show. I would love to have him on our show.
I'll hook you up with him, man.
Awesome. Please do. So the first time I heard this guy speak, it was one of those things where it's like, man, I'm kind of doing some of this stuff already, but then you hear this guy speaking, you're like, still doing it just because he's got the sign that keeps you young. At the time, people you work with, they're paying you. They're starting to get up in age. There's a reason why they're paying you to work with them. Because they got things, and if you can get their mind to work again, it's like reversing the aging process. Work wonders with these things, like memory. With some of my older clients, and we were playing these fun games with these tennis balls and these hand-eye coordination things and these balance games and all this stuff, and it's like they're like, I started to remember stuff again, and like, yes, that's what I want. Like it's so crazy. Sometimes people look at guys like us and they're like, what are they doing? And it's like, but we're training the brain. And you're right, like the games and the movement patterns and learning new stuff. I've never met a dancer or a martial artist that was not super sharp.
Yeah, there you go. Musicians too.
Musicians are a different class.
Has micro patterns, but oh my gosh, how much attention to the detail to get that exact intonation.
It's I believe it's music and sex are the only 2 things that activate the entire brain. I think those are
brilliant. Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, I know when I'm having sex, I'm way smarter because I'm not walking around horny all the time.
Good call.
It wipes out the biggest distraction in your brain the second.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, all right, got that out of the way. Now I can focus.
Yeah, that's right.
Now I can get back to work for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Good point.
So we're totally on. It's great to meet like minds, and to think that when you have a mentality to build strength, that is where you're building mass, and you're just trying to get massively strong. I mean, that's a good goal. That's an okay goal, and particularly you're younger, and you'll have lifelong benefits from that if the practice is varied. But that's just not the practice for everybody. I mean, people's needs are just so wide, and I think what you and I and people like Steve and other people are trying to sort of take our industry and get at least some of it focused on real human needs, which are much more holistic than just adding on some slabs of muscle. 10 pounds of gains, okay, good, but oh boy, the amount of work that you got to put out for 10 pounds of gains.
So true.
If you put that into movement-based practice, progressing stuff, doing, getting better intrinsic strength, better stability and mobility, becoming more graceful. Wow. Again, it's a different, everybody's got different needs, but I think those goals are more appropriate for the vast majority of the population.
I try to speak only from personal experience and sort of what's happened in my approach to fitness. But what you said about the amount of work it takes for gains and then adding the movement practice, I worked so hard for years to get the gains and to get big, and the chicks, which I realized that I could get chicks just by being funny instead of being
Which obviously
real
didn't work out
muscly.
for you, but
Ended up
your
with a
wife.
smoking hot wife,
But
man.
funny
So it
and
did
tough
work
are
out.
going to get hotter chicks, man. I mean, come on.
She still thinks I'm funny, but
Yeah.
but anyway,
But don't
it
get the hot
was
smart chicks. Just get the hot chicks who think that buff is the answer, which, there you go, right?
it's true.
I don't know that you want to marry a chick who's just looking for a buff.
Yeah,
You know?
no, because
Like if you talk at a bar, you know.
I got fat after the kids came.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so I noticed that when I started moving away from that and started doing these movement things that, and I don't know, like, I mean, I don't know if there is a really hard science behind it, but I would guess, if I were to make a hypothesis, that because of the neural recruitment that it now took for my brain to sort of develop these new pathways, that all of a sudden many, many more fibers were getting involved. And then I did put on size. Like I started crawling and doing handstands and like parkour. Yeah, I know parkour isn't a sport you would think of.
Here's that. Yeah.
They would put size on.
Yeah.
But I started doing like ring stuff and vaulting and all this stuff, and my shoulders got so big.
That's gymnastics.
From the demands
You don't see very many skinny gymnasts.
No, no, you don't.
That's the thing of it. Here's the thing that you did. You introduced a shit ton of variety into your program. So now all that work you were doing was being leveraged by the fact that you had all these different new demands, right? So that is, I think, pretty substantial. I mean, bodybuilders, first of all, you see a lot of powerlifters who are just big, strong guys who are already mesomorph in their physiology, right? So they're easy gainers. And
not a lot of ectomorphs in powerlifting.
No, and they, and some of those guys are fat and not even cardio fit at all. Others are pretty remarkable athletes in their younger years, at least until they rack themselves up. But the moment you started adding all that programming to your stuff, that's not easy work. Calisthenics is, man. You look at the guys that are really good at calisthenics. They're as cut as bodybuilders, more than Olympic lifters or power lifters. They're, in terms of a functional body type that also just looks like, holy jeez, amazing.
Is it Al Cavaldo and his brother? Those two are
ridiculous,
ripped and muscular as hell, and neither one of them do anything but bars and gymnastics and body weight.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane, man. Like, oh my gosh, I've always looked up to those guys.
Yeah, well, they have really specific goals. The thing is, what they spend a lot of time doing, hand balancing and things like that, that's cool. But in terms of, if you want to really get good at that, great, do it. But in terms of long-term longevity, et cetera, you're probably better off to be a dancer, for example, because those guys have way stronger legs. And let's face it, most of the time we're walking around on our legs. We're not pulling ourselves up. I mean, those guys for physique and look, yeah, you want to get the look, do what they do. You want to move well the rest of your life. Doing what they do isn't bad. Obviously, if you're really good at it, you're going to be strong as heck. But if you're a dancer, wow, those guys, they maintain grace and fluidity, it seems to me, and posture. They're amazing. Like in terms of an art form or a practice, I think that stands the test.
I was actually a competitive ballroom dancer in college, and
cool.
I played a lot of sports growing up. Wrestling, which everybody says is one of the hardest sports. I will say that. Wrestling, the conditioning is unbelievable. I was a cross-country runner and a track athlete in high school.
Uh-huh.
I was basically every pickup sport. Without a doubt, Chris, without a doubt, the competitive ballroom dance team practices that I had, a little tiny Lithuanian girl, she was only like 4'8". She was our coach. Her name was Inga. they were the hardest things I've ever done in my entire life. Like, I can't even stress it to people. I was like, bro, I will go grab somebody off the varsity wrestling team at Carolina, bring them in there. I'll go grab a football player. I was like, through the first 5 minutes of this dance practice, good.
Yeah.
And I don't think they could have.
Awesome.
Competitive ballroom dancing, the hardest thing I've ever done, and I did it for 3 years in college. Actually won a couple ribbons. Did all right in some competitions. No big deal. Right. We are starting both our boys are starting to dance.
Nice. Good athletes, better athletes.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's what I say. Like, look, give them the foundation. Give them the foundation to move their entire body, and then as they get older, if they want to do a ball sport, sure. I think that kids, any sort of sport or hobby, should be based in a heavily movement-centric practice, whether it be martial arts or gymnastics or dance. Like any of those three, go for it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. Like the amount of control, and one of my favorite shows for years was So You Think You Can Dance, and the amount of control and power that these people have. And they're phenomenal athletes. Like they can jump, they can land soft. You're not even going to hear them land. And like you said, the legs.
I heard a great cue this weekend on landing. I learned something about cueing, but quiet feet. Remember that cue, quiet feet, quiet landings. And then people right away, they stop that heel.
I don't want to hear your landing.
Just a great cue, because when people try to do that, they figure it right away. Okay. Oh, quiet land.
Right.
Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, and that's probably a better cue than you know.
Yeah, no,
it's stiff.
The whole idea is to be very visual or very sensory and very positive, and people just respond quicker, and I just learned, I sort of got saw a good course on that this weekend, and it was a parkour guy actually, Dave Edwards, that I picked that up from. It was a good one.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I want to talk about rugby for a second, okay? So we just had the Olympics. It was the first time in a long while that rugby was back in it.
Yeah.
I have a really good friend here in town, and he played club rugby. Kind of has a passion for it. And for years, he and I kept trying to get together to see, the sevens tournaments and all that stuff, and just couldn't get the schedule together to have it explained to me. Obviously, it had tons of coverage being in the Olympics. So it was the first time I really got to watch enough rugby to sort of understand the game. I've always had respect for the athletes, had some friends in college that played it. But first off, unbelievable athletes. And I think one of the commentators even said that they might be the most well-rounded athletes at the games. And I started.
They say that. They said that for years about rugby.
I started watching it, and I sort of bought into it. I mean, maybe with the exception of your decathletes, like they're in a league of their own anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but let's set the decathlete competitors aside, right? Ashton Eaton.
Yeah.
So glad he won gold again, and what an amazing athlete he is to be able to do that back-to-back Olympics.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about everybody else, and I started watching and really get into it. Like when he said that, comments that as a coach, it's okay. Well, let me see what it is. Why would they just say that? Is this just something that a commentator is saying to say? And I started watching it. It's this unbelievable balance of an agility, power, because they're and strength because you're pushing on other people. It's a lot of times it's very much like that grappler's type strength where you're matching your strength to another human being pressing against you.
Yeah.
And then endurance, because the game doesn't really stop. I liken their endurance to a soccer players. All know have phenomenal.
Yeah, it's rugby basically the 80-minute game, particularly sevens is 15 minutes, right? And so sevens is 15 minutes, pretty intense. You get awfully winded in 15 minutes.
I'm sure.
The full-on 15-a-side rugby is an 80-minute game. So you've got to have endurance, and then there are moments where you're totally anaerobic. It's like you're in a fight. You're in a one-on-one. and then you're back and you're moving into position.
I have to do that active recovery. It's like I have to learn. I have to recover my breath while I'm still running.
Exactly. You have to recover.
So I examined it, and
you got to refuel while you're moving to the next play. It also taxes you mentally, no doubt about it, because you got to make a lot of quick decisions when you're really tired. You have to do a lot of different things too. Like you have to tackle, you have to run. Some guys are tackling, they're running, they're kicking. It's good if you kick with both feet.
Right.
Sometimes you got to be, particularly if you're an average size guy, sometimes you got to tackle a guy that's way bigger than you, right? So you got to learn how to do that. So there's it's a great, I think it's a great development sport. The kids learn how to tackle without killing their heads. I can tell you that. Fewer concussions in rugby, fewer knee injuries.
Definitely compared to American football. Oh, well, and you said it's kind of like recovering in a fight. And I remember a fellow Canadian, George St. Pierre, he was talking about in between rounds, not waiting till recovering within the round, not waiting until between rounds when you're sitting on the stool to recover. And I did MMA for a while, so it's coming from that. But it made sense to think about, but you never really verbalize and say. But I started noticing, watching these rugby players play, and I was inspired. And needless to say, I went and looked at some of the rugby workout things, and I've been trying a little bit of that, and have been enjoying some of their level of conditioning. Because man, these guys are pretty good shape, and I was like trying new things and throwing it in. Like I said, I'm a sucker for variety and having a good time out there. So. Really cool and awesome for you to put 40 years into the sport, the ambassador.
Yeah.
Sport.
I just lived on the adrenaline. I miss it terribly. Rugby Saturday is just an amazing thing because the adrenaline start to build Friday morning. You'd be thinking about the game the next day. And,
I miss competition a little bit for that. And last thing. Awesome! I was so happy for that little tiny nation.
I love about the sevens is anybody can win it, right? In the 15s, you've got basically 4 or 5 countries I think that have ever won it. France, England, New Zealand's won it a few times. South Africa, they're about it. That's about
Africa,
it, right? But at sevens, oh boy, there's any one of 15 countries that could probably win it.
It was wild, man. That pounding they put on England, it was crazy. It was fun, and you gotta. The Olympics are special because you get to cheer for the little guys. Like they've never even had a chance to medal at something.
Yeah.
And their first and only medal as a country is a gold.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And a sport that's special to them too. I mean, it's a special sport to them.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So that was cool, man.
South Pacific eats, lives, and breathes it. 10 pages of the newspaper is rugby. It's like the papers in Montreal. The first 10 pages are hockey. It's just like that with rugby in New Zealand.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It was the English that brought it to the colonies in the Pacific. Is that correct?
I'm guessing. Pretty much. Yeah. And now rugby's not that old a sport, so I think it's just that it just suited the South Pacific. They got that's a warriorish culture down there. Those guys, they love to train. Fight. The Maoris, they were never defeated, right? These guys are hard men.
Great history there. Always been fascinated with Maori culture.
Yeah. Well, and they're naturals for rugby, and they're big, square, fast guys. So when they started to learn the game, they started kicking the bejesus out of a lot of those skinny Europeans. And the Europeans were like, okay, we're going to teach you how to play this game.
You think your average European looking like Ichabod Crane?
Well, they're not big guys as a general rule.
You get some of that Samoan blood in those guys too. Lord, those guys are monsters.
Yeah.
Listen, let's talk about your product a little bit.
Sure.
How you came about? We're gonna sit here and bullshit about rugby and forget the main point. We're talking about this elastic training and this cool product. So I was checking out on your website a little while ago.
Yeah. Anchorpointtraining.com.
Yep, anchorpointtraining.com. We're gonna make sure that we have that in Okay, so we'll make sure we have that for you.
Thanks.
Doing my homework, and I really was kind of digging it. What was the idea behind it? Like, where did you get the idea for?
Well, yeah, okay. So, anchor point training started when I designed an anchor system, and the anchor system was a very versatile way to set up bands and eventually straps. So I was able to sort of develop ideas quickly because I had this system, and then I just started working with a lot of people and who had different needs. I started with rugby and MMA and ballet, and then I was working with physiotherapists and then hockey coaches. And every time you sort of help somebody solve a specific need for a specific range of motion to do something that is appropriate for their sport, you learn something about the overall practice. And I just kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And then eventually started to evolve equipment. The handle design that I have has gone through 8 generations of modifications in 5 years. All of them, developed because I was trying to, again, modify the piece to better serve a specific need. And typically what would happen, you would solve one problem, and then you'd realize, oh, look at that. Not only does it do this better now, but it also does something else better that you weren't even shooting for, but just another benefit, right? So that's, I put my head into the approach because I didn't see anybody else really doing it. I saw TRX doing suspension. I saw some other guys doing, really horrible job with bands. The guys that were even selling the cable machines never fully appreciated the paradigm overview that they needed to develop to make that training as good as it could be, to my mind anyway. I'll give you a quick overview of sort of the how I view this approach to training, and in fact, this is the basis of the course that we offer now, which is certified for NASM and AP and ACE, and will be in Canada and Australia, and I guess we'll grow it out around the world. Is the plan. So in any resisted range of motion, you have a summation of forces in the body. In fact, in any range of motion, just walking down the street, having a dump, whatever, running, all different summation of forces through the body. So when you're working with anchored resistance, I was explaining approaches to people, and the same terminology kept coming up, and then I realized I didn't invent this. I just discovered it, really. There are 3 elements that are external to the body that influence the summation of forces when you're working with resistance that is anchored. And they're this: the anchor point, that is where your vector is connected to, whether it's a rope or a band or a cable or a suspension strap or a pulling sled or a landmine. Where that anchor is going to affect how the forces, the forces you have to work with. How you are connected to that anchored resistance. Is it a handle? Is it a strap? Is it a harness? Is it a belt? All these things affect, what you can do and the forces are to move through your body. And then your orientation to the anchor itself. And by that, I mean your connection to the ground. So is it a slippery surface? Is it a hard surface? Is it tacky? Is it shifting? Is it stable? Are you in a square stance? Are you in a lunge stance? Are you moving? Are you stable? Are you static? Are you on your knees? The connection, what defines the connection to the ground? And those are 3 physical points that any change in those points changes the summation of forces in the body. So the course basically just sort of opens people up to that, gives them lots of examples of what that is. And once you've got that course under your belt, you'll have a sort of a better understanding way to manage and progress any anchored tool, any suspension strap, any anchored band, any battle rope, cable machine, landmine, pulling sled, the flywheel machines, anything that's anchored. So that overview, came over time, and like I said, it wasn't an invention; it was a discovery. The gear I've designed is more along the lines of invention, and it continues to progress. I've got a couple of other designs in work now, but I have a really state-of-the-art resistance band. It's a long band, which has a more gradual change in resistance. and it has a midpoint handle in it, which is a very useful thing because you can create a high and low anchor resistance with that. Very versatile resistance. I've created a suspension strap design that can be either completely fixed or completely reciprocating, which are the two most useful ways to use suspension. The TRX limited stability suspension design is limited, frankly. It forces you into being balanced bilaterally, which is really not the best use of suspension. The best use of suspension is being able to transfer all your weight from one hand to another. Imagine if you were working out with uneven bars and they were also shaky, and you would say, "Oh no, the shaky uneven bars are better than the stable uneven bars." Really? I don't think so. So I mean, they're different. They're useful variety, but you would be able to do less with them because they're unstable.
Right.
So of course it's all good. That's the other thing. I mean, if something is a little different than something else, but if they're, the design I have with the strap is fully reciprocating if you want it to be, which is a more extreme version of a minor instability, which is what you have with that TRX loop. So you can get more out of it, but it's more of an expert tool. So those are the beginnings of the handle design I've created. Allows you to basically create a harness or a belt or you can create a small rip tool with it. You can do grip training with it. You can the handle can go lengthwise, so you can train prehensile. You can slide the handle around so that you can use the long strap around your body, around your wrist. It's just versatile. It's designed to allow you to create lots of different ways to use resistance. So that's the voyage I'm on. I've got a few other designs in work right now, and now that I'm working with Perform Better, it's going to be a lot easier for me to bring these things to market. And I've got a couple of other anchor resistance tools that are sort of in my in development. My mind works this way, and so and I geeked out on it, and so I'm just going to continue to try and stay ahead of what's out there and solve. Ultimately, it's solving needs that I'm running into is really what sort of inspires all of it, right?
Yeah.
Did you originally just develop this for yourself?
Well, I developed I started training this way for myself, but then I started training other people, and then I realized, I need to have a purpose-built anchor system. While I was using other people's bands and stuff. And then, I had one design. It was okay. But then after looking at it for a while, I realized, it could be better if I did this. And the process for me, there wasn't any one idea. There have been a few sort of minor eureka moments. But mostly it's just like you create something, you work with it, you train with a bunch of people, you then see that, if it was a little different, it could solve certain other issues. It's really cumulative, the whole thing. And when the overview sort of crystallized for me, it really also helped me advance the development of my thinking. Because you would know, okay, that's a dead alley. How is it going to improve real connection? Well, good. Well, then that's worth going after. That's so, and it's like anything else, right? You get to a certain point with it, and you get more facility with it. It's the 10,000 hours thing. I've had 5 years in on this now, so in terms of anchored resistance training, yeah, I'm like a legitimate world authority. There's lots of things I'm not a world authority on, right? But that's one thing I am a world authority on. I can tell you right now.
So you're like the guru of anchored fitness.
That's me, baby. I think so. Yeah. I literally, I named the course. I didn't. I say to people, look, I didn't invent that, man. That was just there. I just happened along. I was looking at this thing long enough to realize that it's true. And when your overview, your model holds water, when it applies, you could look at any anchor tool and say, yep, it works for that. Yep, it works for that. Yep, it works for that. And they go, there you go. That's the proof right there, right? So anyway, it's good innings, right? it's been a great story. Doing this and stepping out. This was one of those real, like, paddle to the other shore, burn the boat, and keep going. Right. That's basically what I did.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that Mark and I like to ask. A lot of the people we interview are entrepreneurs, and one of the things is, how do you deal with the challenges, and what kind of major obstacles did you face in the creation of it? Because a lot of entrepreneurs and people, they just give up the first time things don't work out.
I've been in business for myself my whole life. My kids had all grown up. It was harder on my family in some ways. I mean, I came down. I was down to my last, $100, a few years ago. I had a cupboard full of product, but I didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
You make those choices when you're pushing ahead. But I was a happy camper because I really did feel I was onto something. I'd gone deep enough down into it to know that I had something to offer, and it was a huge industry, and I just had to keep at it. I just didn't, and I did not enter the thought, and failure really didn't come to mind very often. There were a few times when I was pretty low, but it didn't stay there for so long. You got to ultimately be hunting bigger game than just the money.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have a bigger why. And my kids were grown up. It was hard on my family watching me do this. Believe me, that they were much more uncomfortable at times than I was. When you make a decision to do something that is going to be uncomfortable, make you a little uncomfortable, all those people around you that they get uncomfortable too, right? So that was tough. They're all pretty happy that I've come out the other side now, and they can see that what all those things I was saying 5 years ago have turned out to be more or less true, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's a big obstacle.
validation is nice, right?
Yeah. Dealing with the negativity and the doubt of the external doubt can be very
That'll get you,
challenging. I
right?
think at times that's probably one of the, at least for me, I don't know how you feel, Mark, but dealing with people around you questioning what you're doing, and whether or not you should be successful at it, and almost being like, why don't you just stick with the stable and the steady? Why take these risks?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a challenge.
I can certainly add a little bit here. I'd say the hardest part of being an entrepreneur is being surrounded by people that aren't entrepreneurs, because you got to be a little bit crazy to just want to be an entrepreneur, right? And it's like you said, Mike, like you're abandoning the stability, you're abandoning the 9 to 5, the predictable paycheck. I know I'm making exactly this much every month. We can work a budget from here. I've since I left working for somebody else, so 7 years ago now, 6-7 years ago, I never looked back. And while what predictable paycheck then, I mean, it was still based on how many clients you had when I worked at a gym. But there's been that up and down, and that stress on life and on family. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and then start another business. And here with Awaken Live, that's the second business I've started, and like Chris said, it's sometimes harder on other people because from the outside, they can see your day-to-day struggles. Like if you have a bad week or a bad month, and how that wears on you emotionally and mentally and even physically to a degree. But yet, on the inside, there's this inherent in every entrepreneur that is this unwielding confidence in their own ability to be successful. So it doesn't matter like the downs that happen, and the failure. It's like you ultimately know that one day you're going to be successful, and that's kind of why you're an entrepreneur. I've yet to meet an entrepreneur that's not successful. Right? Think about it. Think of every entrepreneur you've ever met. They are by definition successful because they stuck it out. That's not the same as a small business owner that failed and then went back to a 9 to 5. An entrepreneur is somebody that continually pursues that freedom of, I own my own business, I work for myself. If this doesn't work, I'll open my other own business. Like I won't go back to working for somebody else like I'm going to make it on my own in my own path. And I think that at the heart of it all is this, like, regardless of what the outside says, regardless of what the family says or loved ones or friends, or even the current situation, like everything, the deck can be completely stacked. I think an entrepreneur will never let go of the belief in what they're doing, and that it can be successful. And that's, like you said, Chris, you had a stack of inventory, $100 in your pocket, and here you are. You just got, you know, the opportunity to now work for Perform Better and have, you know, have them carry your stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, it's been a great evolution. I'm doing a lot of traveling. I'm on the road a lot now. I see this as, you know, we have seasons in our life, and we have seasons in the year, and every business, you know, idea has its life cycle as well. It was a few years just getting born. Right now, I'm looking at what I'm having to do now is like, my business is like a toddler, you know, and I'm going around all over the place in my car and doing workshops, and it's pretty much all me. I've got a few folks now coming on board, learning how to use, you know, to teach the overview. But, you know, right now it's a toddler, but I know it's a very short amount of time it's going to be like this. And then it's going to be something else again. And so it is a journey. And the why for me has been, it's a meaningful thing. You know, if you're lucky enough to find something that is meaningful to you, and allows you to create meaning in your life, this is what ultimately makes us the most happy. It is, you know, it really is. It's for the vast majority of us, finding a way to, you know, having a family is a very meaningful thing. You know, once your kids are grown up, well, what's your next meaningful thing? You know, that's, and for me, you know, I spent many years in the retail business, and I was raising a family, so it was what I did. You know, I needed to do that. You know, it wasn't my ideal business, but I was on my own, and I was having fun. It wasn't a horrible job by any means. But this is a whole other. This was worth taking the risk. This was like, okay, wow, I can bring a really cool approach to training to the world and do something a little better than, you know, what's already out there. And raise the bar, and I'm doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it.
Yeah, that's great, because that's super inspiring. Yeah, congratulations on your success and sticking with it. Seeing it.
Thank you, brother. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Way prettier from this side too.
I'm sure. Sure feels a lot better to be able to sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor now.
Yeah, that's
anything.
That's cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, hey Chris, we're getting close to an hour. Where can people find out more about you and follow you? Social media, website,
Cool.
YouTube,
Well,
etc.
okay. So there's Anchor Point Training on Facebook. Hundreds of videos on the page. Like it up. I crank out a ton of content, but I am not a social media genius. And one of these days, I'm going to hook up with, you know, somebody who really knows how to leverage all the content I'm hammering out there. So there's hundreds of videos on there. There's a website, anchorpointtraining.com. There's gear there. You can learn about the course there. If you're NASM or ACE certified, you can pick up CEUs with this course. And yeah, we're looking for to build you know, a network of master trainers, people who can teach this, people that are interested to create content, specific content. I have a notion that as we get into the consumer market, we're going to create opportunities for trainers to do live training with this gear. From a business point of view, I would rather sell somebody equipment and a year's training, for example, than just equipment. I would rather have them as a customer for a very long time. And I think the way the tech is going, live online training is going to be more and more and more and more doable. And so that's one of the things I'd like to see in our you know, evolve out of our business plan. We'll need a network of trainers for that as well. So yeah, anchorpointtraining.com on the web, product, physical product there, education there. And, you know, Chris Severs, Long Beach. you heard the podcast and you're keen on it, friend me up, man. I'm nowhere near my limit.
Hey, Chris, maybe we could work something out. We could get some workouts and videos of yours onto our portal, so our members can learn how to use your equipment.
Sweet. Yeah, we can hook something up. Absolutely, we can affiliate, whatever. I'm very open to any cooperative ventures in this regard. You guys have got.
I found most people are. Most of the cool people in the industry are all about cooperation.
Fuck yeah. It's the way to do it, man. Absolutely.
It's the way to do it. But man, thanks for talking with us tonight. I enjoyed that. This was a super enjoyable podcast.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, Chris. You'll have to come back on fairly soon.
You're a cool guy.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you. You guys are cool too. No, really. I mean, I love our approach with the games and that. That's brilliant. And the fact that you groove on Steve Jepson. I mean, they're talking about an original human being. Wow.
Yeah, dude. I'll shoot an email and we'll see about getting him on the show.
All right, definitely. I'll hook you up by email. I will. No worries.
Awesome.
Yeah, send me an email for sure. Yeah, no worries. I'll do that.
All right. Awesome, Chris. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah. I'll tell you, there's a guy I know on the East Coast. I don't know him personally, but you talk about games and this guy, Dave Gleason from the IYCA, he has done a wonderful job. He really knows his stuff. And, Dave Gleason, IYCA, he's an entrepreneur, and boy, he's well-spoken and knows a lot about particularly training kids and cognition and all that stuff. He'd be a good guy to chat about that sort of thing with you, too. Yeah.
Can you spell his last name? I'm going to write it down.
Gleason, Gleason. He's an East Coast boy. I think he's somewhere near Boston. I just wrote his name down. I'd forgotten about him as we were talking about the games. I went, I got to try and see that guy while I'm out here. Because anyway, it's the International Youth Conditioning. IYCA is the initials. I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, but he's all about training youth and. He really knows a lot about games and things like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being on our show.
Thank you for having
Chris.
Guys. We'll do this again.
I'm shooting you a Facebook message right now, or invite.
Nice. Awesome.
I'm not internet savvy yet.
Next time we're doing this live with workouts.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, thanks again, Chris, and thank you everyone for tuning into the show. Again, please check out our website, IamAwakenAlive.com. Subscribe to the show, follow us on Facebook, and consider becoming a member and training with us. It's our goal to teach you how to train for a lifetime, and like Chris mentioned earlier, focus on building a dynamic body and not just on aesthetics or other short-term goals. But until next time, have a great night, everybody. Thanks.